Now, public sector workers are demanding a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff, as many government departments are already in crisis. Parliament will kick off public hearings into the budget on Tuesday. Unions say their members are facing a slew of challenges, including a shortage of staff, dilapidated infrastructure and inadequate wages. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced a 23 billion rand additional funding to cover the 5.5% public servant salary increase in the next 3 years, with the workers expecting this increase to come into effect next week. PSA Acting Deputy General Manager for Members Affairs, Claude Naicker, joins us for more. Very good evening to you, Claude. Thank you so much for your time. Now, while some opposition parties have said that they will not support the budget in its current form, calls are being made by unions like yourselves for the budget to be passed. What's really at stake here?
Absolutely. A very good evening to you. I think one of the reasons that we concluded wage negotiations for this year and for the next 2 years so that public servants can enjoy an increase come 1st of April this year. We've concluded a multi-term agreement, a 3-year agreement, which shows that a 5.5% increase for public servants this year, and in the next 2 years, the increase will be linked to inflation. And as I said, we wanted to speedily resolve this so that public servants can get an increase. Now that the budget debacle is on the table, there's a bit of anxiety, not only among the labor union, but obviously among our members itself. And we've been receiving frequent calls to say, are we still going to get our salary increase despite the increase, the collective agreement that we signed? We remain optimistic. I think that you're aware a couple of years ago that government reneged on a 3-year agreement, and this caused a very fractured relationship between unions and the state. And we've been slowly trying to mend that relationship. And if something does go wrong now, I think it will set us really on the back foot, and we'll end up at right at the beginning, at square one itself, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So as I said, we remain optimistic. But I think more importantly, is that there are a number of issues that is now becoming a crisis point. I think staff shortage in critical departments like the Department of Health, Department of Educators with the teachers, and obviously the police services, there's a critical shortage of staff. Government wants to introduce an early exit plan, in other words, giving public servants between the ages of 55 and 59 an early retirement package without penalization. It's been incentivized, sort of like a retirement package, a severance package, if you want to call it that way, would add the incentive. And their main reason is that the public service is aging, and they want to get a very youthful public service. We don't believe this is the true intention of the state. We believe this is one mechanism of trying to get rid of public servants, to trim the public sector to such a state that we're going to have a crisis, because currently we have serious shortages in Department of Correctional Services, where the number of correctional services officers are not able to man the prisons effectively, thereby causing severe risk itself.
If
On
that is your view,
basis,
Claude, and you're not entirely convinced by government strategy around the pensions and looking at opportunities for young people, what is your take then on bringing in young people as we take stock of the reality of the current unemployment rate, especially amongst the youth?
Absolutely. There's no denying the fact that we have a problem among our youth and unemployment. But one of the problems that we are going to be sitting with is that if you do let the experienced and very skilled staff actually leave the public service, you're going to be sitting with a very dire vacuum in critical places like health, the SAPs, and education for that. I think government needs to come up with a concrete plan as to how we're going to address youth unemployment itself. Public sector is the biggest employer in the country, and everybody looks to the public sector to try and reduce unemployment. But I think we need to come up with a plan, a phased plan, where natural attrition of public servants will take care of the youth. Maybe not immediately, but step-by-step process. So I think letting a whole lot of public servants go. We're looking or the earmarking a total of 30,000 public servants in the next 2 years to leave the public sector. Now, you tell me whether it's practical enough to actually employ youth at that rate in the next 2 financial years, where government is constantly citing expenditure problems, having the necessary funds to actually employ. Government hasn't been employing people from 2017. So we have a crisis on our hand at this stage.
So in the midst of the delays, your members are facing many other challenges. I mean, what are some of the biggest issues as you really reflect on the big challenges?
One of the major problems that we're currently having, apart from staff shortages, is the issue about occupational health and safety issues. 99% of our government buildings are not in a state where a public servant can actually walk into and work safely. Every single day throughout the country, we receive queries from members saying that buildings are dilapidated. There's cracks on the wall. There's no ablution facilities. Constantly, there's no water in some of the buildings. Water is seeping into electrical pipes. Last week, we had a problem at one of the major Department of Home Affairs building in Pretoria, where the building almost caught alight simply because water was seeping into electrical cables. There are a number of departments where the Department of Labor has issued prohibition notices where employees are not allowed to enter those buildings. Yet employers allow employees to actually enter the building to work because there's no other space for employees to work. Department of Labor itself issued a prohibition notice to its very own department in Sandton, in Gauteng, saying it is definitely not safe to enter that building. I can promise you, if you walk into any government building today, and if you earmark a single government building that is conducive and safe for a public servant to be productive, I'm still waiting to that here. We're heading for a crisis. It's looming. Our courts, we did an analysis, we did a survey throughout the country. Our court buildings, the scanners that you find at the entrance of these buildings are either not monitored, or if they are monitored, they are not functioning. These poses a risk not only to the employees, but to the public at large. So I think over and all, looking at wages, it might seem one of the minuscule issues that we are dealing with now. But we have greater issues coming around the corner.
So what do you think needs to be retained in the budget as you reflect on all the big challenges?
I think every department will come forth and say, listen, there is serious concerns within our department. But I think we always look at the bigger departments, like Department of Health. We have a number of graduate doctors that are unemployed, especially in KZN. Then we have the teaching fraternity. A number of them have graduated, but there's no money. Western Cape government have openly indicated that they have no money to actually employ these teachers itself. KZN, we have a looming crisis, though if not, there is a crisis where these teachers cannot simply be employed, simply because the department doesn't have funds. And I heard on your bar information while I was looking at the news earlier today, Free State government has returned 50 million in unspent money itself. How do we account for that in this day and age where we have so much at stake, so many challenges, yet provincial governments return money to the provincial treasury or to national treasuries? Somewhere there's a problem. There is serious problems that there's no political will to actually challenge at this stage or to undertake and resolve.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Speaking there to PSA Acting Deputy General Manager for Members Affairs, Claude Naicker, as public sector workers demand a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff.